Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday to you. It is beautiful outside. It's summer, you all. And I'm Tim Harris. It makes me the happiest man in the world, you all. I lived through winter another year, and now it's God's weather, and I just love it so much. And I love you. 10 with Tim. We get together every morning, Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock, going verse by verse through the Word of God. We're in the book of Ezekiel. It's been a hard road to hoe getting through Ezekiel together. There's some difficult parts. Let's just review, all right? Ezekiel is the son of a priest, son of a preacher man. He is in exile. He is with others living a desperate life, working the Babylonian canals by the river Kebar. He lost his wife. He has been called by God to be the prophet, to be God's spokesman in the middle of a hard-headed and hopeless bunch of people. His life is difficult. His ministry is bitter. And much of what we have read together has reflected that. When Ezekiel describes his own, life and ministry, he often speaks in terms of just being, like God yanks him up by the hair and plops him down someplace. He plops him down someplace so that Ezekiel can see what he needs to see, so that he can preach what needs to be preached. And in Ezekiel chapter 37, where we are today, Ezekiel chapter 37, God picks him up and drops him in the middle of a valley of bones. I guess it's very reflective of everything, because his whole life must seem like a sack of dry bones. Do you know what I mean? We've read through it, and I think in some ways by reading, we've kind of forgotten the reality of it. Ezekiel's had very little good things to say because the people have been experiencing God's wrath by their own choices. And so Ezekiel is plopped down in the middle of this valley of dry bones. It's one of the most famous passages in this whole book. Of everything else that we tend to skip over as preachers, most all preachers preach Ezekiel 37 because this is one of the most shockingly beautiful passages about hope ever. What is hope? As far as we know, human beings are the only creatures that have the capacity to imagine the future, to think about the future. And we do it nearly subconsciously. In other words, you and I have this picture of the future in our head. A picture of your afternoon, your evening tonight, tomorrow, what life's going to be like next Sunday or next season or maybe even next year. You can imagine the future. And so, as I say, you carry this picture of the future around in your head. And that picture that you carry, it affects you. The way you think about the future shapes nearly everything else about you. And we call that capacity to imagine a brighter future, we call that hope. Hope is just a simple ability. I say simple, it doesn't make it easy, but it's that simple ability to imagine that no matter what today is like, tomorrow could be better. Do you know what I mean? Hope is about future. Hope is about that picture of the future that you carry in your head. And because of Jesus, because of your faith, that picture that you carry in your head must be bright. Because with God, the future is always, always going to be glorious. As I say frequently in the pulpit at Woodburn, it doesn't so much matter what happened. What matters is what happens next. You haven't seen what God's going to do next. See, hope. Now, the thing about hope is that it got a twin sister, actually two twin sisters, right? Paul says there are three things that abide, three things that always travel together, three things that when everything else is gone, these three things will still be here: faith, hope, and love, right? The greatest of these is love. That's what Paul says. But faith and hope are very important as well. And in Ezekiel chapter 37, the people have lost hope. I mean, you can't blame them. I don't think that they're pessimists. I think they're realists. They are exiles living, as slave labor on the river Kebar, and the only preacher we got, just clouds up and rains every single time he opens his mouth to preach. And so many dead, people, so many amazing and devastating, turns of events. I mean, war that continues, the siege of Jerusalem and on it. There's no good news for these people. And so they've lost hope, but God takes their loss of hope personally. Because remember, when you lose hope, you lose faith. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 defines it. It says, now faith is the evidence of things hoped for, right? So faith and hope go together. If you lose hope, you lose faith. And so God is taking this personally, and it is personal, because they have forgotten who God is and what God has said and what God can do. So God jerks Ezekiel up and plops him down in the middle of a valley of dry bones. Now, if faith is the evidence of things hoped for, okay, how in the world are you supposed to have faith and hope in the middle of a valley of dry bones? Like dry bones. What we're saying is, it's dead. We are standing in Death Valley. It's dry bones. It's all dead. Everything is dead. And so it's amazing how God just says, Ezekiel, can these bones live? God asked a question. Now, I think if I haven't said this with you guys, it would be a miracle, because I say this in the pulpit at Woodburn all the time. There's only one rule. It's called the Harris Rule of Biblical Interpretation. The Harris Rule of Biblical Interpretation. I've only got one rule of biblical interpretation, and it's this. In the Bible, when God asks a question, it's never because there's something he doesn't know. It's never because there's something God doesn't know. So God says, can these bones live? Now understand, God knows, and that's what Ezekiel says. Lord, you alone know. You know. You know. Yeah. Why does God ask that question? The truth is, you'll never get to the right answer by asking the wrong question. And sometimes God gives us the gift of a new question. And in this case, it's just a question of radical possibility. Can these bones live? I would have never thought that they could. I would have never even thought to ask that. When they're bones, they're gone. If it was like a sick body or even maybe a dead body, I might think maybe we could do CPR. Maybe something would happen to spark life. But these are dry, dead bones. But it's that gift of a new question. Because, and later when God says, Ezekiel, the people of Israel, they're the dry bones, they are the dry bones. Maybe you feel like you're the dry bones. Maybe you feel like your life right now is a sack of dry bones. Maybe you think your marriage is just like a sack of dry bones. Maybe you think that there's no hope for you, no hope for what you're going through, and so maybe today it's just the gift of a new question. Can these bones live? Can your cancer be healed? Can your marriage survive? What would happen if you did not take your own life? What would happen if you did not leave your husband? What would happen, if you chose to hope again? Could the Lord save your husband? Could your prodigal, teenager come back home? It's that gift of a new question. You know what I mean? Just what if? You see, God lives in this realm of radical possibility, and he wants you to live there too. And so God says, Ezekiel, preach to the bones. That's what he's been doing this whole time. The people of Israel, they are the dry bones. And God said, Ezekiel, they're hard-headed. They're stubborn, and they're not going to listen to you. You're going to preach your heart out, and nobody's going to listen to you. This has been Ezekiel's whole ministry. He's done nothing but preach to dry bones, But God says, preach to them. And then he's preaching to them, and you hear this, rattle, 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 rattle. And the bones start scooting across the desert floor, and the hip bone connects to the, leg bone. The leg bone connects to the knee bone. They just all come scooting across, and skeletons assemble themselves, and then muscles and skin grow, And then it's just dead bodies laying out there. And then the Holy Spirit comes. The Spirit comes, the wind blows. Remember the Hebrew word for spirit, wind, breath, it's all one word. And the wind comes, the breath comes and fills them with spirit, and they stand up a mighty army. I love that. Who would have thought, Who would have thought? It's only God can do this. And it's a mighty army. I love that because in my life, my line of work, knowing my luck, they'd stand up and they'd be a church committee, or they'd stand up and they'd be zombies sitting in the pew just looking at me, still dead but alive, like zombies in the pews. But that's not it, and they're not like vacationers eating shaved ice either on the beach, y'all. It's an army. It's a platoon of people ready to step into a battle. They got battles to fight, but they got power to wage victoriously, So God raises them up, and they're not zombies, and they're not, like I said, not just a church committee, y'all. It's an army, a victorious army, ready to step out now and live victoriously. Nothing like, the children of Israel that Ezekiel's been preaching to. They haven't been strong. They haven't been victorious. But, it's that gift of a new question, Could these bones live? Oh, God, you're the only one who knows. You're the only one who could do that. And turns out the restoration of hope is one of the things that God is best at. So whatever sack of bones you're preaching to today, promise you just continue to trust the Lord. You believe the Lord. I know some horrible things have happened, but you haven't seen what God's going to do next. Can these bones live? You better believe it. I love it. I love it. I'm telling you, I've been getting through the Valley of Dry Bones of Ezekiel, waiting to get to chapter 37 because I love to preach about hope. I love that. I've been waiting for that. So tomorrow we'll pick up in chapter 38. I'm planning on finishing Ezekiel. If not, probably not next week. We may have to do Ezekiel on Memorial Day, but we're going to get through it here just in about another 7-8 lessons. So stay with me, stay in the Word, and enjoy your beautiful Thursday. I'll see you in the morning, Lord willing, 10 o'clock for 10 with Tim. Ezekiel chapter 38, verses 1 to 23 for tomorrow. I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.